Answer.
63 at O'Hare, 65 Lakefront. Next news 8:30. Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy continues next on AM 560. The Answer.
Build business with Chamber 630, one of the largest business organizations in DuPage County. Marketing your business and connecting clients is their priority. Visit chamber630.com or call 630-968-4050 to join today.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
Good morning, Dan and Amy. More ridiculous, the House Judiciary inquiry featuring Corey Lewandowski, or the House Foreign Affairs Committee hearing featuring, quote, voice leading the next generation on the global climate crisis, unquote, teenagers testifying before Congress on climate change in advance of this national/international school walkout that's supposed to happen tomorrow in protestation of politicians who aren't doing enough to deindustrialize their countries.
That's going to make a real difference.
One, high school senior Jamie Margolin. She's the founder of the
what group it's
the macabrely named This Is Zero Hour, lamenting a world of ifs that she's been forced to grow up in, giving her great anxiety.
It's really been affecting because similar to Vic, I already have like underlying issues of like anxiety. And it's just really hard to grow up in a world full of ifs. You know, I don't think a lot of people in Congress understand the conversations that are happening in everyday American high schools, but we're constantly asked, prepare for your future, study for your future, do this for your future. But our world is full of ifs. I'll be talking to my best friend and she'll be like, yeah, you know, I really want to see this natural place sometime if it's going to still be around. I really want to study to be this if that's still going to be a possibility. And it's just like this constant looming uncertainty. And it's this weird form of nihilism and weird just fear that's been existing in my generation, where kids are joking like, what is even like the point? The world is ending. What are we studying for? What are we doing?
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to talk to Tim Carney this morning, but now I don't even care.
Because
it's all over.
Yeah.
It's all
over.
I mean, this is all a charade. I'm going to give into nihilism, just like these overwrought Gen Zers.
Why were they even invited to D.C. to talk about this?
Because
they're kids, they should be in school, or they're 16, they should be, getting their driver's license. And
because members of Congress will patronize whoever they need to patronize to score political points, and so it was the teenagers' turn. For more on this and a few other topics, we're joined by Tim Carney, senior political columnist for the Washington Examiner and author of Alienated America, Why Some Places Thrive While Others Collapse. Tim, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Sure. Thank you for having me.
All right, I'm going to try to muster the energy to get through this interview. I mean, I just so depressed after listening to these teenagers testify. The issue with climate change policy, the politics of it, the Green New Deal and Medicare for All have been targeted by the operative set in the Democrat punditry class, notably our former mayor here in Chicago, Rahm Emanuel, as untenable positions in a general election. Yet we're only in the primary election, and the Democrat candidates for president will not relinquish those putatively untenable ideas, will they?
No, I mean, on some issues, you do see it working out in the primaries. It looks like Beto O'Rourke's call for gun confiscation might have cut his support in half. Yes, from 2% down to 1% in the latest poll. So that's pretty damaging for him. But yeah, the climate change positions there, it's an echo chamber that they live in, and it's amazing to see this feedback loop in place where we have the left spending decades, years and years, aggressively telling everybody that the planet is ending. And then, as proof of their own, that they need to pass their own policies, they drag out a bunch of kids who are depressed because they've been convinced that the planet is ending.
Right.
And they do the same thing with guns, and it's terrifying there. I see people who say, look, I didn't care about gun control, but now that my kids have to go through these active shooter drills in school, I'm sick of this, and we should ban these guns so my kids don't have to do it. And I want to say, your kids don't have to do it. Statistically, they're more likely to be killed in varsity sports than in a mass shooting. And yeah, a mass shooting is absolutely terrifying, horrible, horrific for everybody it happens to. It's also statistically unlikely. Just like it's statistically unlikely we're all going to die from drowning under melted polar ice caps. But the scaring is part of the politics, yet they use it as proof that action is needed.
And I don't know if I'm sure you haven't, but maybe you have. Did you ever watch Big Little Lies? That
No.
show on well, in the second season, their daughter tries to commit suicide because she's so freaked out about global warming and that the Earth is going to end in 10 years.
Yeah, so you see it's irresponsible. I agree it's irresponsible to pollute. I agree it's irresponsible to use more energy than we need to. I agree that it would be responsible to curb greenhouse gas emissions when we can do so. But it's also incredibly irresponsible to lie to people and convince them that the planet's ending or that they're very likely to get gunned down in school.
Yeah. Speaking of breaks, though, you mentioned some people breaking off of Bobby O'Rourke and also publicly criticizing him. Joe Manchin saying Bobby O'Rourke's not taking my guns, for example. Other members of Congress saying his damn right we're going to take your assault weapons was not helpful. Democrats saying that on the Hill. Another Democrat is breaking off from one of her committee chairmen. Politico reporting in a closed-door meeting last week, Nancy Pelosi stunned lawmakers and aides with a swipe at Democrat staff on the House Judiciary Committee, criticizing the panel's handling of the impeachment in harsh terms, saying, quote, and you can feel free to leak this, according to multiple people in the room that talked to Politico, perhaps a growing schism between Pelosi and Nadler and some of her apparatchiks on impeachment. And I presume that schism is only going to grow wider after the sort of ridiculous show the other day with Corey Lewandowski.
No, that's right. The Democrats are in a tough spot where they have to go through the act as if they're impeaching in order to appeal to the base, but they also know that they have no chance of winning in the Senate. By right, they wouldn't win in the Senate based on anything they found or even are investigating, and that it would hurt them politically, and it would really help Trump get reelected in 2020. So they're having to play to two bases right now. And I don't envy Nancy Pelosi on that. And the Lewandowski thing was kind of bizarre, and it reflected how I think some of these Democrats actually believe their own talk, and they thought that they'd easily be able to get Lewandowski to do what? To say, darn right, I ordered the code red? Or
yeah, exactly.
I mean, it quickly dissolved.
They thought they were going to get that moment. Yeah, but they didn't. And they some of them believe their own talk, and the other ones, the more cynical ones, like Nancy Pelosi, knows you need to sort of walk through this to satisfy the bloodthirsty base.
And I think it was a big, huge win for Trump for 2020 by even holding these hearings, because it quickly dissolved into a circus because Lewandowski, I mean, he refused to answer most questions, and they got into a, you read this. No, you read this. I don't know if you saw that exchange between him and...
I mean, but that's who Lewandowski is. I mean, there's various things. If you got to get into a quiz on knowledge of the U.S. Constitution against Corey Lewandowski, you would probably win. But this was a political show, a political knife fight, and that's not something where I would go up against Corey Lewandowski, because that's what he is. That's why he got on the Trump train, and that's why Trump liked him so much.
I wanted to also, too, I mean, just in keeping with the week that has been, I mean, this Kavanaugh matter further marginalizes and I would think exposes the Democrats for easy caricature, the hysteria, the complete reckless disregard for anything resembling due process or thoughtfulness in assessing an allegation that many candidates for president on the Democrat side jumped in to call for renewed hearings on Brett Kavanaugh and impeachment over this anonymous allegation that was that isn't even substantiated by the alleged victim per this book that came out this week on the Kavanaugh hearing by 2 New York Times reporters.
No, I mean it's tough for me. I'm in the media. I have been my whole life. I'm often defending my colleagues. I point to the much good work that the New York Times and places like that do. And then if I try to cite a story in the New York Times that says something that's enlightening, half of my conservative friends will say the New York Times are liars. I say they get things wrong, but they're not going around lying to ruin people's lives. And then they go around lying to ruin somebody's life.
Right.
To run
Yes.
the story about Kavanaugh that they ran, where you have a third-hand report that came through a Democratic operative and was denied by the supposed victim, but to leave out the person who passed it along with the Democratic operative and to leave out the denial by the supposed victim would be prosecutorial misconduct. That was our editorial in the Washington Examiner. But then we point out the New York Times isn't supposed to be the prosecutors. They're
Yes.
supposed to be informing readers, but they are disinforming readers. And does it help Trump? I think it probably does, because it convinces more people, actually, yeah, these guys are the enemies. They're not just lying to us. They will lie about us if they think they have something to gain.
And they will
Just
continue
reckless
it.
behavior.
They will continue. I mean, you have the candidates. You had Kamala Harris this week on Rachel Maddow's show, relitigating how Blasey Ford was treated the same week that all 4 of the people Blasey Ford has said were at the party to provide corroboration to her story. None of them remember the party, including her good friend Leland Kaiser. And yet Kamala Harris is still with this rap about she was treated like a criminal and Kavanaugh is illegitimate on the bench. And Mitch McConnell, Julian Castro, Mitch McConnell has stolen 2 Supreme Court appointments. I mean, I don't know how they think that plays in a general election, but that is a lot of material for Donald Trump and Republicans to use.
No, and again, it's the same sort of self-reinforcing echo chamber feedback cycle where the New York Times had a piece on Tuesday saying, oh, well, because with these new accusations against Kavanaugh, it highlights how illegitimate it is and thus makes the case for the Democrats packing the court. They make an unsubstantiated attack that then falls apart, yet still say the unsubstantiated attack makes the case for us to take these extreme measures. And it really is an abandonment, and this is what our editorial today in the Examiner is going to be, an abandonment of standards. Kamala laughs at the Constitution. The New York Times abandons editorial standards. They all call for the packing of the courts. And we had another piece yesterday saying that the Bill of Rights is really actually pretty bad because it preserves minority rights, a minority of people who want to own AR-15s. And so these illiberal, unconstitutional ideas of tearing down old norms to advance what you're going to do, I think, and this is what you're getting at, I think it's a misperception. They think they are the supermajority in the country, and I'm hoping they're not. I'm hoping half this country thinks we ought to play by the rules.
Now, I wanted to get to this piece that you wrote in the WashingtonExaminer.com too, because it's one of these pieces that's just infuriating, and it's why I always refer to myself as a conservative by choice and a Republican by necessity. I'm not super ecstatic about being a Republican, and it's about
Illinois.
Particularly in Illinois, but generally. U.S. Export-Import Bank. Who's the top beneficiary of the U.S. Export-Import Bank?
The Chinese government. So it's supposed to help us compete with other countries. But mostly what it does is it gives money to China. It lends U.S. taxpayer money to Chinese government-owned companies so they can buy Boeing jets or other equipment made in the U.S.
Yeah, I mean,
Wow.
it's and this is something that has been a fight on the Hill before, and a lot of Republicans rallied to save this rent-seeking organ. And I mean, I know there's a lot of things on his plate, but this certainly would be part of draining the swamp were you to be completely draining it.
Yeah, no, Congress, the authorization for EXIM ends for the Export-Import Bank ends at the end of this month. And it used to be that Republicans kind of opposed it, and now more of them have come on board with it. There is a push. There might be an amendment to say, okay, fine, if we have to have this agency subsidizing foreign companies that buy our stuff, maybe we should put a prohibition on subsidizing the Chinese government. But there's really tough opposition to it. I wouldn't be surprised if some of your Illinois members oppose it because Boeing knows that their best customers include these state-owned companies in China, like Air China and South China Airways. And so you've got some U.S. congressmen from the state of Washington saying, no, we have to subsidize the Chinese government because they buy stuff that's made in my district.
I mean, how muddled is that thinking? It's just so, and it's the same thing. You're right about Illinois congressmen too. Yeah, because we need to protect those 200 white collar jobs at their corporate headquarters here. That's such a force multiplier.
The taxpayers are still you taxpayers are still paying.
Exactly, it's insane. Tim Carney, senior political columnist for the Washington Examiner, author of the book "Alienated America: Why Some Places Thrive While Others